For an update on the Nigerian equities market, after weeks of gloomy trade at the local bourse, the key index is getting some respite on fresh bargain hunting by investors. It's currently up about 0.25% at 36,424.5 points. Cadbury and flour mills lifted the bourse, gaining 6 naira 80 kobo and of course each. On the flip side, early laggards UAC Property, Fidelity Bank, First City Monument Bank and Wema Bank. The Canada market sustained these gains till the end of trade. Abiola Razak, team lead research at UBA Capital, joins me now for market update with a focus on the power sector. Thank you so much, Abiola, for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Esther.
And what's behind this sudden turnaround at the market? The key index up about 0.22%, and we're looking at some food stocks in the lead.
I think it's largely a function of the bargain hunting. You remember very well the market has actually been on the downtrend over the last 10 trading sessions. Interestingly, the market valuation is actually beginning to look attractive at around 12.1 times earnings multiple and a dividend of around 3.3%. This is largely comparable to what you find in other emerging markets like China, like India, and even like South Africa and even Kenya. So on the back of that, we're beginning to see some appetite again coming on the back of this price correction that we've seen in the market over the last 10 days. So for me, I think it's more of like a bargain hunting opportunity in the market for people to buy. Yes, volumes are still thin, but we expect that this bargain hunting should continue in the market to the end of the market today. But of course, I would typically say that it's still a cautious market at this point in time because the flows are not strong.
Now let's talk about the power sector. Now, one company listed on the exchange that's part of this power sector reforms is Transcorp, or actually Transcorp Ughelli Power Limited. Now, yesterday it appeared investors didn't get a chance to react to the news that Transcorp Ughelli Power Limited had paid the balance 75%. So how's the stock trading now? Any positive reaction?
Transcorp is currently on bid now, and that is actually expected from two perspectives. Over the last 3-4 trading sessions, that stock has actually been oversold, and that's because of the concern that a few investors have with respect to their ability to be able to pay the 75% balance for the acquisition of Ughelli Power Plant, like you mentioned earlier. But of course, now that the dust has actually settled and they've actually seen Transcorp's will and ability to push through that transaction, market is now reacting positively to that counter, and of course, this is positive and this is justified.
Let's talk about your outlook for the sector. Now, obviously, it's gaining momentum, and everyone is happy that we have crossed a major milestone. And going forward, now that the private sector is involved with the power generating and power distribution companies, we should see a significant improvement in efficiency and perhaps a significant increase also in power generation.
First, I would actually say that I'm happy to say this is a significant milestone for Nigerian government and its people as regards the reforms in the power sector. Now we've seen improved confidence in the government and, of course, the prospect of the power sector reforms in Nigeria. And having met all those requirements, the condition precedent as they were up to this stage, this actually shows the confidence and the ability of the private sector guys in Nigeria, in conjunction with some international technical partners, to be able to take over the growth poles in Nigeria, particularly the power sector. In terms of the impact on the market and the economy as a whole, I think it's very good for us to approach it from two perspectives. One is from the perspective of the cost reduction to businesses, and of course the second has to do with the impact on income levels in Nigeria as a whole, particularly the low end of the market. On the issue of the cost, I'll just take a simple instance of maybe the telecom industry, for example, which of course energy generation, which of course is through generating set, which of course run on DPK and LPFO, currently account for about 35–40% of their operating cost. If you then back out that on the back of the envelope, analysis actually shows that they can actually reduce their overall cost by about 20% by getting power from the national grid, which of course is a cheaper source of energy to the telecom companies. For instance, in the banking industry, you find banks running an average of about 5% of their OPEX is related to energy. Of course, they're also going to benefit from that. And my own take is actually the fact that this is going to be a significant opportunity for the small and medium scale enterprises in Nigeria. If you agree with me, most SME in Nigeria today are actually struggling because of their inability to actually rely on the national grid for energy supply. So for me, I think this is going to be a major game changer for the SME businesses in Nigeria today. And of course, this is also going to encourage entrepreneurship. When you then begin to look at the entrepreneurship and the SME part of it, which of course is going to be the major employer of labor over the medium to long term in Nigeria, I think this is actually going to reduce unemployment rate in the country, not even from the perspective of the employment opportunities that the power sector reform creates directly, but from the indirect opportunities that you get from the businesses that would thrive just from the fact that power supply is now going to be efficient over the next 2 to 3 years, in my view. So I'm looking at this from the impact of that unemployment generation, which will translate into additional incomes for the bottom end of the Nigerian populace, which is why I think this is a significant milestone for the Nigerian government and its people. Either you look at it from the perspective of cost reduction to businesses, and even from the perspective of income additions that people may begin to get from this. So I expect this to be a very good game changer for Nigeria going forward.
Now, some industry watchers have expressed concern over government interference, even though these private players are expected to have free hand. And of course, we know that the transmission company of Nigeria is still in the hands of the federal government. Do you share those same sentiments?
I think I must highlight here the fact that this is not the end of the tunnel. I think this is, for me, just the beginning of the game. And I think with respect to the intervention of the government, you've actually mentioned a significant risk, which is the transmission company of Nigeria, which is still largely 100% owned by the government, even though it's currently being managed by a Canadian company. But I think one important thing we should look at is the fact that the government also has that will to actually push through this reform in the market. And I think if we look at the issue of the risks that are actually in there, for instance, it's not just the government intervention. We still have the issue of the gas supply, for instance, to the thermal power plants, which is still a very major, significant order that we need to cross, particularly with respect to the ability of the oil majors to meet up with their domestic gas supply obligations in the country. For instance, currently, just about 20% of gas that are produced in Nigeria is just supplied to the local market. About 80% of the balance is actually exported. So there is need for us to invest in the infrastructures to be able to meet up with the gas need of this power plant. But I'm very sure that the government is already working towards this. We still have the risk that has to do with the issue of importation of the implements that are required. As you may be aware, most of those plants are actually currently running at below 20–30% capacity utilization. And of course, we're still expecting some investment in terms of expansion, particularly from the likes of Ugili that you mentioned. In particular, Transcorp, for instance, have actually indicated their partnership with GE, and of course, they're quite positive on their ability to be able to more than double the capacity of that Ugili power plant in the next 3 to 4 years. I believe in their ability to do that, particularly that most of the risks that I actually identified, for instance, with respect to gas, they are sitting on 2 major assets that are actually oil and gas assets, and on the back of that, I expect that they will begin to explore gas from those 2 oil and gas assets that Transcorp currently sits on now to be able to feed in as a feedstock into their power plant. So yes, this is not the end of the tunnel, but of course, this is a significant milestone, and I think the government would also be very supportive in pushing through the reform. So all hands are on deck, and I think there's bravo. We must give bravo to the government up to this stage, and we must also encourage the private sector guys who have actually been committed to this cause over the last 2 years.
Thank you so much, Abiola. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Abiola Razak, Team Lead Research at United Bank for Africa.